I think we're at a stage right now in the organization. There's the old storming, forming, or norming and forming kind of way that things are going. I think we're kind of at the end of the storming phase right now. We're not quite there yet, but I think we're getting very close to the end of that. And then we're going to start seeing us get to coalesce a lot more. I think I'm a really big believer in SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I think our strength is in our numbers. I think our strength in the fact that we're so like-minded really gives me a lot of encouragement. I don't hear a lot of dissension. We get the odd bit, but I think for this many different people from so many different countries, we've done very well to identify the areas where we want to go towards. I think we're modeling quite well, and I thank John for that. I think, you know, you've given us kind of a template. Why invent another wheel? It's gone really well. I think it's important that we identify what our weaknesses are. I think one of our greatest weaknesses is that we're so spread apart, so it makes it very difficult for us to do things in a timely fashion. And you know, it's very difficult sometimes to tell others who are new to it, or even some of the existing ones, is just hold on. It might take us a little bit. We're still developing policies and procedures, and that gets a little rocky sometimes, because one of the challenges we have with animal welfare is we're all passionate people. And that's a wonderful strength, but it's also a weakness sometimes, because sometimes passion comes from emotion rather than common sense and really thinking things out. So it's, you know, sometimes we need the voice of reason to stand up and say, hold on a minute here, let's just kind of examine this a little more closely. Opportunities, I think there's all sorts of opportunities here. I think we've got, you know, when we're talking about heritage sites, that's a wonderful opportunity that we can create. There's all sorts of other opportunities we have, because when we get together in a room like this, and we've been, even outside, like this, just the last couple of days, we've been going out for supper with various members, and we sit there, and we usually talk about business. We don't really talk about much else than whales, dolphins, and what we're doing, which we're all very interested in. You know, I mean, I know my friends kind of get sick of it. You know, they don't want to hear about fish, but I think that's one of the things that's really good about bringing us all together. So that's, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in this room, because we've got an amazing amount of real brain power, people who are actually physically out there doing things. And I think that real world stuff is what really brings it home. So I'm really happy to see that, you know, the opportunities are there and we're actually taking them. Threats is something that takes a lot of forms. And Joanna brought up something that I felt was really important. We're putting a lot of focus on captivity, but we can't lose sight of the fact that there's way more whales and dolphins in the ocean than there is in captivity. So granted, as much as we have to focus on captivity, we also have to make sure that we're identifying all the threats that the wild whales are facing. That could look like an environmental threats. I know where I'm concerned in the Canadian Arctic, we're really scared. They're going to start drilling for oil and gas up there. Locally in Vancouver, we're seeing they're talking LNG facilities with great big ships coming through, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of threats that are still opening up, and we have to make sure that we know what they are as they're coming in. And the beauty of it is we're more eyes on the ocean together than we could ever be separately. And that's the other thing that I found. Like CMAP's my organization. We're not big, we're a small outfit, but we can do so much more if we work together with a group like this. And I think everybody should take advantage of this. We're like a brain trust. And if we all decide to start aligning our own values of our organizations with WCA, and we're going to do this at CMAPs, like if we take on ghost nets at CMAPs to go aligning with what we're doing at WCA, we're going to have a lot more advantage there, and we can share the resources. And I think that's something that we really have to identify, that we always have to do, is if somebody runs into some sort of an issue, if there's somebody else who knows what's going on and has been down that road before. I mean, talking to these gentlemen from Argentina, they're miles ahead of us there. So let's look at that and see what they've done and how they've got to where they got. And let's, you know, there's no need for us to start over again. We can do this together the same way, because often if it works one place, it'll work another place. You know, there's cultural differences, but that doesn't always mean that we, you know, I think that's one of the challenges we face as well. I'd love to see somebody from Japan sitting in this room. I'd love to see somebody from China sitting in this room. I'd love somebody from Russia sitting in this room. So we have to identify who these emerging nations are before they go down the road of captivity and say, you know, there's a lot more money to be made by going whale watching than there is to go out there and predate them and bring them into a captive facility. So if we can help them to develop best practices before they even go down the road of captivity and say, you know, there's so much more if you go down the other road. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in that as well, but I think we're facing more threats today than we've ever faced. I think the environmental threats are high. My biggest concern and biggest threat I think we face is food source. I think we're going to find that food source is going to be one of the things that within the next few years around this table, it's going to be something we're talking about. We've lost 9/10 of the big fish in the ocean. Not all our whales and dolphins are fish eaters, but a lot of them are. So that we can't just turn our back on fishing. So most of us, you know me, I've got one mantra. It's like we've got to create fully protected areas. And the other thing I want to put in the back of people's minds is speciesism isn't serving anybody. If we just focus on one species, we're in trouble. We have to say, wouldn't it be nice? I was really encouraged. Fin Fighters was at Whale Fest this year. I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see more shark people. I'd like to see some turtle people. I'd like to see all these various different organisms that we all care about, and we all start unifying our voice. But the nice thing that we've got going for us here is we cover a large part of the world, and that's something we don't see too often. The fact that we're organizations of organizations and individuals, that's what gives us the strength we need. And it also gives us a pretty good brain trust of what's going on out there. And we're all doers. I think the fact that you're sitting here means you're a doer, and doers get things done. So let's kind of keep doing stuff, and all I can say is don't lose sight of the fact that, you know, we've got something really special here. We're going to have rough spots. We're going to have disagreements, and if we learn, it's how we learn to deal with them that's going to define us. It's not, you know, if we get in dust-ups, it happens, but it's how we deal with it that's going to matter. And so if we develop the right policies and procedures as we move forward, I think we can really make this happen. So I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing so far. That's my 5-minute speech.
Perfect. I'm definitely not doing a speech after Roy. It's like the groupie like the graveyard shift. So folks, in that case, so we'll move on to our ghost nets and entanglement session.